I am live. As somebody who loves technology, loves figuring out when things go wrong, and frankly has a background in kind of taming the crazy and the chaos, I will admit that even I have butterflies when I am hitting the live button and it feels like it's not working. So I am connected, I am live, I am here. If you are live now, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell me where you are, what your business is all about, what brought you here. If you are watching on the replay, please feel free to answer the same questions. I am really excited to be having some fun with funnels. And yes, we are going to have some fun, I promise. When I talk about marketing automations and funnels and signals, like I sometimes see people's eyes glaze over. And I am here to bust the myths that marketing automations and funnels and technology have to be scary. And you're going to see over the next few minutes, it is going to be very informal today. So, a few things that I want to share as I get started. This is not an official training. This is not a webinar. I am not going to have a lot of slides and be running through some sales pitch. Truly no shade to that strategy because I have led many a sales webinar. I have worked with clients to implement many a sales webinar, but that's not what this is. Okay. So I am really just going to share some of the things that I look at when building a sales and marketing funnel. I'm going to show you some kind of pre-built funnels that I pulled up just to give you a little bit of taste of what can be and how it can look. But I would love for this to be interactive too. So if you're watching, again, whether live or on the replay, let me know what your business is all about, what you're trying to accomplish in 2023, what questions you have about funnels and implementation and the rest. So a very, very quick setup. My name is Katie Widrick. I'm a fractional CMO and CRO, which means that I spend a lot of my day-to-day time, not only in creating and designing funnels, but implementing them. And the thing that I think is really important when thinking about funnels, why do we have them? Why do we spend the time creating them? What are we trying to get out of them? Is it's not just about getting the person into the funnel. It's not just about nurturing and getting them to become more aware of your brand or of your offer or whatever it is that you're accomplishing. But really, ultimately, the good funnels will get you toward your business outcome. So one of the things I want you to think about, whether you are a seasoned tech veteran and you're here to get into the nitty gritty with me, or if you're somebody who's like, yeah, okay, I've heard people talk about lead magnets and funnels and I don't know where to start, so I'm just here to get exposed. You're in the right place. You're in a safe place. And so we're going to talk about some of those strategies as well. But again, as a fractional CMO and CRO, my day-to-day job is to work with companies to really make sure that we're capturing the vision of what they want to accomplish and then implementing it so that they can take their big idea and actually see it through. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm actually going to turn my camera off for a bit as well, but I'll be monitoring comments. I will be kind of poking around. If you have questions about anything that I'm talking about, if you'd like me to give you some ideas for your funnel or for the top of your funnel with a lead gen or brand awareness campaign, or even all the way down through the middle and the bottom of the funnel, feel free to leave me a comment or reach out and let me know. Truly, I love talking about this and brainstorming. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you again. I have set up, I'll just come back over here and talk to you here for a second. I've already set up a funnel, a very advanced, very intricate funnel. And I'm only going to show it to you to kind of cast some vision about what your funnel could look like. And again, I'm saying could, I'm not saying should. You have enough people in your ear telling you that there is only one way to do something, or there's the right way, or trying to sell you a template, or trying to sell you some $17, workflow out of the box template thing. But the challenge is that if you don't use it, it's like anything else. If you don't use it and if you're not thoughtful about why and what's the messaging and what data can you pull out of it, it's just going to be another $17 $27, $37 thing that sits on your desktop or sits in the cloud. So the only reason I'm showing you this is just to have you think perhaps a little bit bigger, not just about the top of the funnel. How are you getting somebody into your email list, into your database, or to become aware of you? What are you doing after that? And it's the what are you doing after that that frankly is both my zone of genius and my sweet spot. So I'm going to talk about top of the funnel. If I reference, by the way, tofu, mofu, or bofu, what I'm talking about is top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. I may use some other jargon. Okay. I really try to school myself to not use the jargon because I don't like being jargoned at. But if I say a phrase or a word and you're unfamiliar with it and you want some clarity, please don't hesitate to ask. There truly are no dumb questions about funnels. And when I get like fully in my nerd zone, I know that sometimes I can get a little bit too techy and a little bit too in the weeds. So let's go ahead and dive into this funnel. So again, this is an existing funnel. This is actually a funnel that I have worked on for another project for a client. I've kind of removed all of the specific terms and words. And so you'll also see one of the things that I'll do, and I'm going to zoom in on some of the sections here. I've written CRM tag. Now, I want to say from the outset that when I am building a funnel, and frankly, this is like fancy for me to do. I'm using a tool called Miro. I really love this tool for, everything digital workflows, customer journey maps, vision boards, Kanban, like you name it. Miro is a really great digital whiteboard solution that I use pretty frequently. This is not to say this is the only one. Frankly, if you have an existing CRM or email service provider like a ConvertKit or a HubSpot or an ActiveCampaign, you can do this same type of mapping right in that platform. And I'll give you even one more break, which is to say, this is not usually V1. I almost always sketch my funnel and I map it out and kind of design it on a literal piece of paper with a pen. Sometimes I'll get fancy and use my whiteboard, but I do best when I'm writing it out, scribbling, moving things around, erasing, and then I sort of take that and I put it into a map, and then the map gets implemented. So for the purposes of today's Fun with Funnels, look over my shoulder, just assume that what you see here is not necessarily where I would start. I usually take it and just brainstorm all of the things and then take my messy piece of paper and move it to here. And from here, this will show you why being a CMO is a full-time job, or a marketing operations professional is a full-time job. This map is beautiful. It's great. It gives the vision to the team, but then somebody's got to go in and build this. Spoiler alert, that's actually my favorite part, is the going in and building it. But if that's not you, if that's overwhelming and you love this, you want to just cast the vision and you have some of these ideas and you're going to turn it over to somebody else, that's totally fine. If you are a natural implementer or integrator and you are typically the one that is being handed a map like this, there's plenty for you to come over the next few minutes as well. By the way, I should note, I'll come back over here and just pop on my camera for just a moment. I told you this was going to be informal and hopefully kind of fun. Grab a drink, grab a snack. I think my office dog is running around here somewhere. My drink of choice for today is Diet Dr. Pepper. Don't come for me. I know it's kind of gross, but it's also like my funnel fuel. So I gift myself a Diet Dr. Pepper whenever I'm building funnels. Anyway, we're going to go back to talking about funnels, but if that's you, I'd love to know what your funnel fuel is. A drink, a snack, something that you do just to keep you going with energy. Okay, let's go back to the funnel map. So let me widen out and say this is actually multiple maps in one. Okay, so right here, I've actually taken kind of 4 different areas of a funnel. And in this case, I'm talking specifically about the initial opt-in, which is driving people to a webinar, which is driving people to a sales process. It is very important, if you hear nothing else today, please don't think that I'm saying this is the only way to run a funnel. This is an example. And once I'm done walking through some of this, we're actually just going to have some fun and build a funnel kind of at random. I'm going to remove all of this and make myself from scratch, and you'll see how messy it can be. But what I have here again is just an example of an opportunity that a client or you could have where you are launching a webinar or some type of training. And so you take people through this initial sign up and nurture process. I'm going to dive into those details in just a moment. If all of this is making your head spin or your eyes gloss over, I'm going to come back to this. Then we have the post webinar workflow. So, what happens after you've completed your training and you want to go into a conversion or a sales stretch of your funnel? I've mapped that out as well. And then down here, I have two really commonly overlooked funnels or workflows that I think are really, really important. And there is a slight distinction or difference between the two. Now, if you are sending people right to a checkout page, right? So you've done the webinar, you've gotten them in, you've done the training, you're following up. Now you want them to buy whatever it is, your product, your service, your program. You may be sending them direct to checkout, in which case this may or may not be as applicable. Typically, what I like to do, and I know I'm jumping around here, so again, ask any questions in the comments or feel free to follow up with me by DM or email when this is done if you have any specific questions about what I'm talking about. But what I like to do typically is, send them to a sales page a couple of times. And then for the last and final call, take them directly to checkout, especially if they have entered one of these. So expressed interest, this is a Katie term. Okay. This is not a fancy, everyone's going to know what you mean by this term. So feel free to put this into your own words. And if you have a better, like expressed interest is not a really sexy phrase. So if you have a better idea of what to call this, I am all ears. Let me know. But essentially, what I like to do is the abandoned cart is kind of a no brainer. And you probably receive a lot of these messages, whether it's a direct to consumer product that you're buying through Shopify or through someone's e commerce store, or you are putting someone's program, their fitness program, their coaching program, whatever it is, their template, you're putting it into the cart and then not completing the purchase. If you've gotten to that stage, you've put something in your cart or your users have put something in the cart, then they are about as hot a lead as you're going to get. These are people who they got it. They heard your nurture, they heard your sales messaging, they went to the sales page, they put it in their cart and then they walk. The abandoned cart workflows, I don't want to say I hate the phrase low hanging fruit, but I don't know what else to call it for right now. So this is kind of the lowest hanging fruit. So use cases here might be that somebody put it in their cart and they got distracted. Hi, I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, a busy life, work, home. I don't know. There's always something good on Netflix. And so it's pretty common for me to put something in my cart and walk away. It's really more and more common, by the way, for D2C or direct to consumer buyers to put something in the cart to see if they're going to get a better offer, like a discount in the abandoned cart nurture, or if it's going to price drop. That's really common, say, for putting things into an Amazon cart and seeing over time, is it going to drop? So an abandoned cart workflow is kind of a no-brainer. Hey, you left this in the cart. I want to make sure you can complete checkout while the item is still available or while X, Y, and Z. The expressed interest is probably one of my favorites, and it's the least commonly used workflow that I see when I'm starting to work with a client or when I'm talking with other people who embrace funnels. This is people who clicked to the sales page, but didn't actually put it in their cart. So if they didn't put it in their cart, they're not going to get this, hey, you left this workflow. But they have clearly indicated that they're interested enough. Something in this email or this text message or this ad or whatever it is that you're doing here in the middle of the funnel, something compelled them to go check out the page. Now, why didn't they put it in their cart? I don't know. Maybe the messaging on your sales page didn't convert them or didn't compel them. Maybe there wasn't enough urgency. Maybe they also got distracted. Maybe they were just looky-loos. They wanted to see what the price was. They wanted to see X, Y, and Z, and they never intended to check out. You have to, this is where, again, I say this is a full-time job. Fun with funnels over 30 minutes, 40 minutes. We're not going to get into all of the psyche or the belief mapping or any of that customer journey philosophical approach that is so important to what we do. But certainly here, there's a lot of that to consider. But back up here, this is where the funnels, don't they look so pretty? I want to spend some time in here talking about how I like to nurture somebody sort of in between when they first sign up for whatever your thing is and the thing. And again, let's just take one moment. And I want to share that the top of the funnel, the lead magnet, there are lots of traditional things that I'm sure you either have been doing or have heard of. Go here, enter your information, get this free, whatever it is, a meal plan, a checklist, a free recipe, a free workout. I've got fitness on the brain because I'm thinking of one client in particular who's in that space. But if you're a business coach or an executive coach, perhaps your freebie is 10 things you need to know about forming your business entity. I'm making these up. That's a typical sort of freebie or lead magnet. The webinar, which I'm really diving into here just as another example, that's something you can try, but don't be afraid to think out of the box. I find that when I'm first talking with people about funnels, they get so caught up in what is the thing that I'm giving away. The thing that you're giving has to be valuable. You have to have thought about, what is going to be a good exchange for them giving me their contact information or for them opting into this thing. I'm going to put a big asterisk there, by the way, because if you are in a product-led growth company, you may not be gating your content at all. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because there are so much to say about this kind of new trend of not gating your content, not requiring an email, not requiring someone to sign up, just giving them access without anything in return. What I'm doing today is actually a great example. I am not using this Fun with Funnels training as a list builder, not because I couldn't, but just frankly, my business goals, I'm not necessarily looking for that. I really just wanted to talk about funnels and see if people would show up and if they would like it. And here you are. So this is an example of a non-gated way of kind of reaching out and driving brand awareness. And ultimately, if somebody was watching this and they really wanted to work with me or learn more, they know how to contact me. So I'm only saying that because if you happen to be watching this and you're in a product-led growth role, or you're thinking, hey, I just don't want to do it maybe that traditional way. I want someone to be able to download my white paper without having to opt in with an email. I want someone to be able to watch my demo video without handing over their email. Great. That's becoming a trend that I'm seeing with a lot of companies, and that is absolutely doable. But again, if you're thinking about more traditional lead magnets, I mentioned a freebie, I mentioned a webinar. I wrote down a couple of notes just in case I'd forget, a free trial, an email sequence. One of my highest performing lead magnets at the top of the funnel, and best performing in terms of how well did it convert people into whatever it was. In my case, it was kind of an older version of My Business Now, where I was doing done for you marketing services. I had a 10-day drip email that really walked through the 10 ways to be more efficient, how to time block, how to get to inbox zero, what tools to use. That email drip was very, very successful for me in my business goals and my business growth at the time that I launched it. And literally that's all it was. I didn't have to do anything on video. I didn't have to create any PDFs. It was just 10 emails dripped out one a day. And so I wrote them and sent them, and that was my lead magnet. So there are probably other examples I'm not thinking of. An on-demand video. I think I mentioned a free trial, booking a demo. Don't get caught up in the what it is, right? I want you to spend more time in thinking about what happens after that. Because if you feel really good about the middle and the bottom of your funnel, the nurturing is there, the messaging is there, the urgency is there, you've got a really, really clearly defined offer that people actually want. If you're talking about that in the middle and the bottom of the funnel, then you're going to be in a much better position to say, okay, now I need to go from 10 people accessing this to 100, and from 100 to 1,000. How you do that? That's the magic, right? That's the growth marketing that we can talk about in future. Look over my shoulder, because that's ultimately the only way someone like me keeps a job, is to say, I'm going to help you map out and implement a really strong middle and bottom of the funnel. And then I'm going to go back and get as many people into it as possible. So I'm going to take a moment and just pause. Oh, Lindsay's here. Thank you, Lindsay. Yes. So lukewarm, but not hot. That's a great way to articulate it. So I really think about sort of, and again, these are terms that you'll hear applied a lot to like paid ads, or for growth, demand generation, growth marketers. We'll talk about this, these stages of where a buyer is or where a prospect is. Super cold, doesn't know you at all. Hot, like they literally put it in their cart, or perhaps they booked the demo and the call with you, did the discovery call. They're just making their decision. That's sort of the range. There are all of these in betweens that we can pull from using our funnels. Allie, I'm so glad you're here and I'm glad you're finding this helpful. Lindsay, I'm not surprised at all to hear that it is coffee. I'll take a sip of my funnel fuel and then get back to this. So I'm going to dive into this kind of top of this top section that you see here, where I'm talking about what happens after they get into whatever your freebie is or your lead magnet. So I'm going to kind of point out some of the things that I include in just about every funnel I do. And I want you to think about, what data do you need? What are some of the signals that your audience could be giving you that maybe you aren't, it's not even that you're not collecting, you're just not interpreting. And here's the good news. I want to stress this. Like, if I could say this in all caps or if I could bold it, just picture that's what I'm doing. There is this tendency for us to think, myself included, to think, oh, I have to go ask my audience. I have to do a survey. I have to do a poll. I have to ask them. And yes, there is absolutely a time and a place for that type of market and audience research. But the thing that most of my clients and my friends and my colleagues, and yes, past Katie, will do is we forget that we're getting signals at every point of the funnel. And most of us just aren't collecting it in a way that we can kind of do some storytelling or acting on it. So I'm about to get probably as nitty gritty and jargony as nerdy as we're going to get here in this session. If you have questions about what I'm sharing, please continue to drop them in the comments. I know there are some that are coming in, I see via DM and kind of email. So I will respond to all of those comments. If you aren't comfortable posting it publicly, or you have something that you think I really just need to know specifically about your use case, let me know. I'm happy to respond to all of that. But let's go ahead and pop back over to the funnel. And so again, I'm going to zoom in here. And again, in this example, what I'm sort of pitching is, you might be doing a webinar or a free training or whatever you want to call this, and then that's going to go into an offer. So as I mentioned, I sort of have a use case or an industry in mind. So let's talk about this as a business coach. I just know that because I am surrounded by friends and colleagues who are business coaches. I dabble in it enough to know kind of what the pain points are. But again, if you are, I saw some people saying, can I do this for a fitness program? Can I do this for I'm a podcast manager. Can I use funnels to bring in new clients? I am running this was a really interesting one. I'm helping with a youth baseball team, and we want to get more people volunteering to help out the team. Yes, and yes. So for a baseball team where you're trying to solicit volunteers, maybe the webinar and the offer isn't the thing that you're trying to accomplish. And so maybe what you're doing instead is you want people to be able to watch a video of how much fun it is to volunteer, or, some type of email sequence, which is like how simple it is to become a volunteer, what the payoffs are, the time commitment, whatever it is. So again, even though in this case, I'm talking about a business coach who's doing a webinar and then creating and launching an offer, please remember that you can apply some, all, or none of this to your own use case. This is really just to give you some examples of the nitty gritty, not the top of the funnel. I don't necessarily care so much what you're doing top of the funnel, everything else. So with that said, let me walk you through the way I might map out this funnel. And again, I've pulled something in that I have used in the past. I sort of removed and tweaked I thought it would be easier than you watching me try to figure out how to drag over a box and put a text in it. And again, I'm going to say one more time, if you happen to be watching this on replay or you're watching now and you're like, Katie says I have to use Miro to do this. No, she does not. Katie says the tool doesn't matter. Again, neither does the email service provider, which is the reason you don't see me building this in a HubSpot instance or a ConvertKit or an ActiveCampaign or an Infusionsoft or Keep or whatever it's called. I have clients on all 4 of those platforms. Plus, I have a client on FlowTrack. I have a client who's still on MailChimp, despite my best efforts. I have multiple, if not clients, colleagues, or people that I know who are using Flowdesk. All of these tools are fine, are great, and you can map them out specifically in that platform. So again, I'm using Miro just because I think it's a good example of how you can map it out for yourself or your team. But feel free to do this directly in your CRM or your platform if that's easier. Okay, so let me just run through a few of these. Some of these may not apply to you. Some of these absolutely may not apply to you. So, am I saying you have to create a one click RSVP? No, I am not. I am simply saying that if I were working with this client and I had an existing list, so this is sort of for existing people on the email list, I like to make it as frictionless as possible for somebody to join the event. I already have their information. I don't necessarily need them to fill out a form with their name, their information, their email address, their phone number. I already have that. They're already on my list. So for these people, I like to do what I call a one-click RSVP. Basically, it's just an automation. So they get an email, "Hey, I'm hosting this event. Do you want to join? Click here." They click here in the email, and then in the system, okay, again, I said we're going to get a little more nitty gritty. In the system, I take them to a thank you page, and they are tagged in the system as basically having RSVP'd. It's the same outcome as if they had completed the form. So they click a link, they go to the thank you page, thank you, you're in, and then the system is saying tag them as going to the webinar. The landing page, this would be for colder traffic or for people who aren't necessarily on your list. Go to this page, learn about my event, answer this question. I'm going to talk about this in a second and why I love this step, and then go to a thank you page. TYP, thank you page. TYE, thank you email. That's just how I use it. And I've gotten into the habit of just dropping those terms because I use them so frequently with my team. But I'm realizing as I look at this, the TYP may not be something you're familiar with. This isn't a fancy, like, industry-wide term. This is just Katie. TYP, thank you page, thank you email. Keep it simple. Okay, so this part right here, this is the first example of where I would say we're getting a little bit more advanced. So one of my favorite things to do, and remember we were just talking about how can you collect data, how can you get signals from your people without specifically saying, "Hey, I'd like to know about your interests or your stage of business. Please tell me." This is an example where it's sort of a hybrid, right? So the form might say, "What stage of business best describes you? Haven't yet launched, but struggling with growth, growing and struggling with how to, not lose my mind as I grow, and hugely profitable and successful and ready to exit." Or something like, "What is your current business goal? I want to book my first client, or I want to generate, at least $1,000 a month. I want to generate between 1,000 and 5,000, between 5,000 and 10,000, between 10,000 and 20,000, 20,000 plus." Play with that however you want. Again, I'm using the business coach as the use case, but if you were in another industry, you might say, let's think about fitness for a second. What is the biggest struggle that you have? Is it nutrition? Is it fitness? Is it overcoming an injury? Is it blah blah blah? I like to collect some data here because one question usually does not create extra friction. If you're trying to ask somebody 10 questions before they go into a free event, you're going to lose them. So be thoughtful about this, but name, email, phone number, and then one question. What best describes you? If you had to pick one of these, which one? What is most interesting to you? This can also even be, how do you prefer to be contacted? Email, phone, something else. I don't even know how else? Snail mail? I mean, direct mail is making a comeback, so maybe. Anyway, hopefully you understand that. And here's why I think this is so powerful. So in a typical funnel, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. You go from landing page to thank you page to emails. What this does is it's the first step where you can collect a little bit more information. So somebody who is working toward their first $1,000 in business, the first $1,000 month in business, has very, very different interests, pain points, and challenges than somebody who is, looking to go from 10,000 to 20,000, or who is consistently generating $20,000 in her business and wants to go to 50 or whatever it is. So knowing that allows you to put it into your system a different way. So again, think about tags in your CRM, in your And again, I think it probably, if you're here, you know what a CRM is, but if you don't, let me know in the comments and I can dive into more detail. And then what I like to do is branch. Okay. So again, I know we're getting a little bit nitty gritty here. Based on what they say, I like to take them to a thank you page that has the most relevant information for them. Again, somebody who's not desperately, God bless business owners who are launching. My favorite thing to do is hear somebody who's launching and trying to make their first sale. So but the challenge is somebody who's trying to launch and make their first $1,000 is way different than somebody who's like, oh, $1,000, please. That was me 3 years ago. I'm up here in the $20,000 range. And now I have to figure out how to hire. I have to figure out how to not burn out. I have to figure out how to go from one-to-one to scale. Again, big difference. How do I create and launch my offer? How do I position it? What do I do? And how do I, oh my gosh, I have created position and I am selling. And now what? So if you spend too much time talking about this to this person, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose their trust. And if you spend too much time talking about this to this person, you're going to overwhelm them. So this is why I think this is so, so helpful and is so easy to do. No friction. Nobody has ever come back to me and said, well, I was going to join that webinar. And then you asked me that one innocuous question. Nope. Ultimately, they're really thankful because they know they're in a nurture sequence. They would never call it a nurture sequence, but they know they're getting the most important information for you. Side note, if you're doing this and you find out that 80% of the people coming to your webinar are here, then you're probably going to tailor the webinar a little bit to this person. And you're certainly going to tailor the messaging after the event more to this person. So again, they answer their question, they go to a different thank you page, they're tagged in the CRM. So again, maybe this is like baby business and this is booming business, whatever you want to call it. They all get a different tag. Then they all get a different thank you email. So they're all going to the same event, but the email here might be, congratulations. I love working with people when they're just building to their first $1,000 month, or they're really just getting started. In the webinar, I'm going to address this with A, B, and C. Same thing down here. Thank you so much. Can't wait for you to show up. I love that you are successfully running your business. Can't wait to help you figure out how to really take it to the next level. In the webinar, I'll be addressing this, this, and this. Okay. So those are different thank you emails. Everybody gets the same thank you text. You're in. Text, short and sweet. I love SMS and MMS messaging. Again, that is a topic for a different day and a deeper dive, but I do love a good text message. This is a note that I would make either to myself, because I'm usually the one implementing my map, or handing off to somebody. At some point, this nurture campaign that I'm going to talk about, you don't want to do this. If somebody has signed up the day before or 2 days before the webinar, they don't need, it's not that they don't need, there's just not enough time to nurture them and to warm them up. So really everything that they're doing is they're just getting the reminders and then they're going into the webinar. So for the people who sign up early, so let's say you started to market your webinar 2 weeks before, you've got this 2-week gap where they've signed up, but the event's not happening. Well, let's nurture them. And again, because you know where they are in their stage of business, you're going to send them another email or two, or text or two. This, by the way, do not overthink this. Promise me that you'll not overthink this. I'm not saying create 8 new emails and 8 new assets. Nope. If you have a podcast, if you have a blog, if you have other freebies, if you have a social media post, if you have a reel, if you have a whatever it is, a past email that went out, just repurpose. Just repurpose it here. Hey, based on what you've told me about your business, I think you're probably thinking about, how do I create my offer? Well, here's an article that I wrote talking about it, or here's a podcast episode, or here's a YouTube video. Don't overthink it, right? Use what you already have. This is not like nurture right here is not where you want to come up with a lot of new content. But every time they do something, did they open the email? Did they click the email? Did they do something else? Tag them. This, by the way, again, whew, can you tell I love funnels? I love this. I'm like, I could be here for 2 hours and I'd still be having fun. But here is where I do a lot of lead scoring as well. So again, the only thing I mean by lead scoring is that every time someone takes an action, it's showing me that they're more engaged. Somebody who opts in and then reads these emails or gets these emails but doesn't open them, a little bit less engaged. Somebody that opens them but doesn't click, maybe a little bit more, but still not there. I'm super excited to track the people who open it and click it. And every time they do that thing, I'll score them. So I'll add a point if it's in ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign, or I'll add a flame if it's Infusionsoft or Keep or whatever it is. Every system has their own thing. Score them. Show me that they are more interested, because ultimately, if you have 100 people attending this webinar, you want to know which 10 really, really loved your content and kind of came warmed up. So again, every step here, make sure you're measuring. And if you're overwhelmed at that idea, just make sure that you've set it up. Like, lead scoring is my favorite thing to set up for clients because so few of them do it. And it's not a set it and forget it, but it is a set it, forget it until you need it. It's a little bit harder to go back and score after the fact, not impossible. So you could go back right now and find out who clicked my last 3 emails. I'm going to tag them, or I'm going to add 1 point or 1 flame. You can do it in reverse. That's really common when I'm starting with a client, is sort of a cleanup and then a best practice is moving forward. So just keep that in mind. And then everybody gets the standard email reminders, right? So again, I'm talking about a webinar, so it's a little bit more time bound. If you're doing just a general lead magnet or a drip email and there isn't that time sensitivity, you don't need the reminders. But I want you to think about this concept, getting enough information here to take them down a more custom path. And again, this is all automated. You're not doing this manually. You're setting it all up manually, but then all of this is working for you. And then down the line, if you want to go from 100 people to 1,000 people, maybe you spend some ads, maybe you work with an influencer, maybe you do a more aggressive marketing campaign, right? I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to worry about the 1,000 people until this is tightened up. So then we get into the post webinar. I'm going to take a pause because number one, I need some Diet Dr. Pepper. Oh, it's a big juicy funnel, and it definitely gets more advanced. And I know that talking about a funnel for 10 minutes feels like it's so easy to put together. It's not. This is like 80% of what I do is in funnels and in demand gen and in thinking about how am I increasing conversion in the funnel. And so this is not nearly as easy or as simple as I've made it to look by just pulling up a pre-made funnel for you. But hopefully this is, I hope there's one thing that you've heard that has inspired you to take a look at your own funnel or to really think about the way to capture data in a new and different way. So if that's true, leave me a comment, send me a message. I'd love to know what has resonated with you and what maybe is still a little bit squirrely or scary to you. Okay, let's go back to the funnel though. So now we're in the post-webinar funnel. Okay, so we've done the event. We're going to give them an email and a text. Here's the replay if you missed it. I'm going to follow up usually with 1 email. So again, I'm not yet into the big hard sale. You certainly can. People like, I would absolutely consider cutting this out if your audience doesn't need this type of warming up and you are like, I'm ready to go directly to the sale. Frankly, you're probably making the sale on the webinar itself. You're launching the offer or you're introducing the offer. But I like to really think about like, how am I thinking about sort of the 1 to 2 week sales process after a webinar? You know, I'm sending the email so that people who didn't join live can watch the replay. I'm putting some urgency in there. The replay will only be available for X days. I'm following up. What was your biggest takeaway? I like to do this with links. Again, I know that there is a tendency when you're first getting started to say reply and tell me, and that's totally fine. If you have the bandwidth or your audience is small enough that the people who are, everyone who responds, you're going to be able to reply to them, that's fantastic. But as you grow, you're not going to be able to answer 100 people who write back and say, I loved when you talked about, whatever it is like X, Y, and Z in your webinar, Katie, but okay, that's going to be hard for me to respond to if it's 100 people or 1,000 or whatever you're getting to. And believe me, those are not just goals I just set out of nowhere. This is pretty common for clients that I work with who are a little bit more established in their business, maybe aren't in the early stage growth, but they'll have 1,000 people attend their event. And so if they were to say reply with, it gets pretty crazy. So I like to do this with links. What was your biggest takeaway? Number one, I'm using this as a total example and I already don't like the examples I'm about to share. So just forgive me because my creativity is a little bit tapped here today with the qualifying questions. But it might be, was your biggest takeaway that you need to build an email list, that you need to establish your offer, that you need to start running Facebook ads, that you need to delegate more? Maybe those are things you covered in your webinar. So you would have a link and it would say, which one was your biggest takeaway? So again, just like we did here with the one-click RSVP, I'm going to take them to a thank you page based on the link that they clicked. So if they said building a list is the most important, thank you so much. You're absolutely right. Here are some resources that I have for building your email list. Here's a blog post, here's a podcast, here's a whatever, here's information. Same thing with these other 4 answers. Again, we're putting the information into your CRM too. So now we know what stage of business they're in, how engaged they were at this stage, and also what was their biggest takeaway from the webinar. Thank you page, send you a thank you text. Thanks so much. Love that feedback. Here's a link to more resources. And by the way, this is typically, there's always Facebook ads. Thanks if I'm working with a client who is using either the Facebook Pixel, the Google Pixel, TikTok, like kind of at every point here, just assume that we're syncing some data to that pixel or to a custom audience. But in here in particular, this is where I'll do a little bit more of that like heavier sort of remarketing. So they're clearly interested. They did all this, they responded, and now they're in the Facebook audience. And then we get to opened but didn't click. And this is just if somebody opens it and doesn't click a takeaway, I still want to follow up with them. They all go into a sales sequence. Okay. So they're going to get the sales page again. And then this is usually a last call. Hey, time is running out. I'm going to take, and then I take them directly to the checkout page. So this is the sales page has all the information. This is where you see all your typical, here's the problem you're facing, here are the deliverables, here's why me, here are the FAQs, here are the testimonials, like everything you've seen on pretty much every sales page, including the ones that I designed, by the way. So that was not a dig. But at some point, if you are running out of time or you want to have urgency, you might take them directly to the checkout page and bypass this. You're assuming at this point they've had all the information they're going to get. Just make it as easy as possible. By the way, I don't use deadline funnels or timers on every campaign, but I really still think that they are very persuasive and very effective if you have an actual deadline, if you have actual urgency. I have used urgency and scarcity in the past when it was not real. I'm not too proud to admit that there are things I've learned along the way that maybe were effective, but I don't like, or that weren't effective and felt that way, or whatever it is. And also, our audiences have gotten really smart. So I don't just slap a funnel or a deadline funnel or a timer on every page or email. But if I have real urgency, a bonus is expiring, the price is going up, I'm about to close enrollment, whatever it is, the baseball season is about to end, so I need volunteers by this date to get trained, I will absolutely use a deadline funnel or a timer. And I think that's really effective. And there we go. So that is, oh my gosh, I don't want to say that's the funnel, because my goodness, there's so much more. Getting people into the funnel, not just capturing the data, but actually using it. You may be a solopreneur, so you're the person coming up with the idea, leading the webinar, putting this into place, like nurturing, selling. Oh my gosh, the idea of doing one more thing is probably overwhelming, and I get that. So pick and choose what's going to be most helpful to you. I want to encourage you. Here's what I will say. I want to encourage you to not just do things to do them. And again, if that's where you are right now, or if you have felt in the past overwhelmed because you're like, well, these are the pieces of a funnel, I have to do all of them. I get that. That's a part of what we all do, either when we're starting or when we're growing, or again, when we're in this solopreneur stage. So I understand and empathize with that so much because I've been there, done that as well. But I want you to say, like, what are the things I'm actually going to be able to act on? What's the information I need? Do I just need to know who clicked on the sales page and I'll follow up with them? Great. If you let the rest of the data go, that's totally fine. But that one particular metric might be what you need to go and do some of the more one-to-one sales. You're texting them, you're sending them a DM, you're sending them a personal email follow-up. Give yourself the benefit of that small segment of people that you know are interested. And if that's the only data you measure and use, that's better than what you might be doing now. And that's the biggest difference. If you can go from, closing 1 to closing 10, or if you're doing a lot of 1-to-1, how can I make sure that I can sort of give this same approach and not just be doing the 1-to-1 marketing, but have this same message and know that the 10 people who clicked this sales page have all the same interests. So I'm going to send them a message. Hopefully that makes sense. This is why, again, this is a full-time job. It's not as simple as just talking about it for 45 minutes and it's good to go. But my intention was to just give you some inspiration and some ideas. Okay, I see a couple of, tech pieces, Allie. Whew, I get that. And again, this is why I think I have job security. Technology, I know, can be scary and overwhelming. I think there's a benefit here in delegating and bringing on team members who are really, really strong integrators or implementers if you have the budget to do that. If not, again, like I said, don't worry about doing all of the things. Say, the thing that I need to know is who clicked the sales page. And even if I can't automate everything else, I just need to know who those people are. I'm going to go do the unscalable hard work. I'm going to literally text them. Boop, boop, boop. I'm going to send them a DM or a voice memo. You might need to do that. And then ultimately, if you get to the point where you have enough people and you're generating enough revenue, maybe that's when you slice off a piece of that and find a really amazing VA or an integrator or an implementer who can do this for you. I think that's a really smart business case. Do I like open and close launches for digital courses? And oh my gosh, this is something I will probably talk about in more depth in a future session because I don't have binary, this is great or this is terrible feelings about it. What I think is important is number one, in a perfect world, my favorite type of launch is more of a hybrid. So it's not necessarily something that's just always available and you never market it. I like to think about sort of these time periods where you're doing a quote unquote live launch and you're more aggressively or more strategically launching the way you would if it were typically open and close. And so you're doing all of the things. You're doing a webinar, or you're doing sales calls, or you're doing email campaigns, or you have bonuses, even if the course is always available, which I love. I really like, I am not a huge fan, with some very, very good exceptions. I'm not a huge fan of true like open and close, because if you have a good product or a good service and your messaging is there, if somebody wants to come in and wants to invest in you or in it, I don't really see the benefit in totally gating it unless you're like uber well known, you have a massive list, you're getting, whatever it is, 20,000 new leads a month, like then maybe a true open close will work for you. But I think for most of us, a different approach, which is it's always available, but you're picking and choosing times of year to really lean into the marketing. I think that works best. I do think that an evergreen kind of demand-based funnel can be really effective. And I have some clients that we're doing that right now. Just as a quick example, it's sort of a pre-recorded webinar that streams as live. You jump on the landing page. You can choose the next available session, which is usually that same day or the next day. It's all kind of pre-recorded. And then there's a disappearing offer in there. I do find that that can work really effectively. And then again, maybe you're not doing front end marketing for that course, or you're just kind of front end marketing like the free webinar that has all of those elements in. But once a quarter, couple times a quarter, you are more like publicly launching and promoting the course. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's definitely a nuanced question. I think it really depends on your energy, your audience, and how well you've designed that evergreen funnel to actually convert, if that's what you do. Yeah, the extra data on the funnel, it's probably the most overlooked thing. The other thing I will say is that, so there's this idea of like not dark social necessarily, but dark measurements, which is it has become harder and harder for us to track conversions based on the attribution source. So again, because of all of these things, you might be attending someone's webinar and you're getting a Facebook ad and you happen to see them post organically on Instagram and you're getting an email and you're all of the things, right? And so it can be really hard to know, even if you're tracking like last touch, what is the link that they clicked right before they converted? That would be like last touch attribution. But it's hard. It's become harder to rely on, let's say, a Facebook manager to tell me, did that get the conversion? Well, maybe they saw the ad and then they clicked the email. Anyway, point is, it's really hard to know where someone found you. And so I really still am a big fan of kind of doing the post-purchase survey, which is your information. How did you find out about us? And it's not a perfect science, because they might say, oh, I saw a Facebook ad, or, oh, a friend told me. And they actually, the first time they heard about it was they saw an organic social post. But what is really helpful is what is the most memorable thing to them. And so I like to gather some of that data after the purchase, but collecting some information when they're still a prospect so that you can really compartmentalize and personalize the follow-up. I think that makes a huge difference. And again, it is the thing that can scale from, 5 people signing up for your course to 10 because they really felt seen and heard and nurtured and all of that. Okay, I am going to wrap up, mostly because my Diet Dr. Pepper is almost gone and because I think I've probably overwhelmed you with funnel speak. But again, my intention here is to show you some of the things that I like to put into a funnel. And if you are able to take one piece out of it, if seeing the full funnel here is totally overwhelming and you're like, I can't do all of those things. Well, there's probably one piece you can do. That one piece might just be adding one qualifying question to the form. And again, if you don't do all of these fancy like maps out of it, they all just go to the same thank you page. They all get the same email sequence. That's fine. You've now collected data that you can use later if you want. You can look at those signups when you are going to sell and you can kind of use that data then. Or maybe again, you're thinking about this expressed interest. You know, is there some element that people are telling me that I didn't really think about? They're clicking the sales page, but not adding it to the cart. Okay, how can I follow up with maybe just them? With a text message, with a personal email. Maybe I'm recording a video and sending to them that's really personalized. You know, hey, Jenny, I saw that you checked out the website. I'd love to tell you more about this offer. As you know, the bonus with me expires X, Y, and Z. Click here to book a quick no pressure discovery call with me, you know, whatever it is. But doing that for the 10 people that clicked the sales page and didn't convert, I think is more effective than continuing to blast everybody with the same message and not personalizing it. So again, pick one thing that you might have heard today and say, I'm going to try that, or I'm going to bring it back to my team. Or if all of this is overwhelming and you hate the idea of it, that might be a goal for you is to say, I need to generate enough revenue doing whatever I have to do so that I can hire an integrator or an implementer. Because I promise, I speak from experience, there are people that genuinely love this part and don't necessarily love the big visionary, big, bold idea part. And that's I don't want to say least favorite because everybody loves to brainstorm, but I don't get particularly lit on fire with like, what is the offer? What is the event? What is the lead magnet? I get really psyched up about everything that happens afterward. So if that's not you and you're the big visionary, just remember that maybe your goal is not to be the funnel person, but to get yourself into a position where you can work with somebody who is the funnel person. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I see comments everywhere. I see people in my DMs. I see emails. So I'm going to respond to all of this. Again, if you are here live, thank you so much. I loved doing this, and I'd love to know if this is something you would maybe want me to do here in the future with other topics. If you're watching on the replay and you've gotten this far, again, please feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what your takeaway was. I'm going to be looking back at all the comments and responding as they come in. Have a great week. Happy holidays to all of you. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and, you know, give yourself a break. Don't think about funnels until the new year. It'll be here waiting for you. But enjoy